There we go. How's that? Oh, look at that. Good job. Good job. Don't touch anything else. I mean, I don't need my head up there, but I'm about to should do a screen share, so. Okay. So we're still kind of kicking the tires and getting to know our new place. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. Many old friends and new friends, and it's exciting, isn't it? We get excited about beginnings, don't we? It's part of our culture. And hopefully we'll keep practicing even after the excitement wears off, because then we realize we actually have to sustain our lives, But excitement is fun. So in religion, there's kind of two big sort of branches, and if you think about how does it do anything? How does this help me or help the world or help the universe, these religious practices? And one way to think about it is, well, it's because of what I'm choosing to do. I'm choosing to go to the Zen center. I'm choosing to do meditation, or I'm choosing to go to the church, and I'm choosing to do prayer practice or whatever it is. Or the other possibility is it's not me at all. I may need to show up, otherwise it doesn't seem like much happens, but it's about Buddha, it's about God, it's about something much bigger than I can even understand or say or name. And it's just a fun little pair of words in Japanese religious studies for all this. There we go. Okay. Which is self-power and other power. Self-power is Jiriki, and other power is tariki. Jiriki and tariki. I don't actually really know Japanese, but I enjoy these two words. They just have a kind of powerful ring to them. And in Japanese religion, most of the religious practice is considered to be tariki, other power. But Zen is kind of the exception to the rule, that it is considered to be a Jiriki practice, a practice of self-power. And that's probably why it appeals to us more, because we're the culture of self, right? We think, I do this, I do that, I need to make the right choice, I need to work hard, I need to fulfill and improve myself and all this. So we're great believers in self-power. And I think that's also why when Zen came to the West, one aspect of it got emphasized a lot more than the others, which when you go to Japan, you'll see it's a different balance of things. That here we emphasize zazen, emphasize meditation most strongly, because it looks to us in our self-power framework to be like, yeah, that would be the thing that does the thing, right? Don't you think so? Yeah, you think so, right? If we meditate, we'll calm down, we'll be more balanced, we'll be more insightful maybe. And now they're doing neuroscience, so we know it's for real, But there's lots of other things that happen in Zen practice that are not meditation. And we just did one of those practices, practice we call service, practice of chanting and bowing. And it was so fun to get to come in late. Thank you to Chris for leading the service, because I got to sit in the back, stand in the back, and just kind of watch it all and hear it all. The acoustics are pretty good in here. I'm really happy about the acoustics in here. But anyway, you sounded and looked and felt just great. Great to do that practice together. So why would we do that? How would that benefit us to chant things and do a bunch of bowing from some other culture? And in fact, a lot of people who show up in Zen places are resistant to this at first, like, well, that's weird, and maybe we have sort of more recently sort of social enlightened ideas like maybe that's actually bad, maybe that's cultural appropriation. Well, we're not Japanese or Asian people, most of us here anyway. Why is it okay for us to do that part of it? Maybe we should just drop that part. And some places did choose to drop that part. There are places that originated in Zen Buddhism that ended up doing just silent practices, just simple mindfulness practices, dropping the chanting and the bowing. But we've kept it. And then when you go to Japan, you may notice that actually there's a lot less zazen and a lot more of that kind of stuff. It's unusual for a village or a town Zen temple in Japan to have a meditation hall. That's unusual, actually, not the usual. but everyone will have a Buddha hall. Everyone will have a big hall for rituals with lots more elaborate altars than, this is like our more elaborate altar than before, but it's still pretty simple compared to any place you'd go to in Japan. They got stuff hanging from the ceiling. Plus, they'd been there for hundreds of years, so they've accumulated a lot more stuff than we have in a month, you know. So, you know, some donor gives you another really cool ritual thing, you put it in there, and it stays, you know. So it seems like actually Zen isn't just self-power. There must be something else going on to explain all this. And you probably noticed at the end of the service, Desiree did a little chant in English where she explained that all this stuff that you just did in Sino-Japanese has some purpose and brings some benefit. The language was a little bit coded. And then we gave it away. We gave it to ancestors and suffering beings everywhere with kind of formalized language. So it seemed like maybe there was some kind of exchange happening there, something happening with the chanting and bowing that doesn't make sense from a self-power, American exceptionalism point of view at all, you know. And maybe we could make up reasons like, oh, it harmonizes us. It's a community thing. We move together and chant together, so that's good because we get along better. Maybe when we're in harmony, so that's possible. But I want to suggest tonight, actually, there's something much deeper happening here and much more mysterious and actually much more important than we might think. And I want to play a little bit with the original Chinese that all this is based on. So this may be too ambitious, especially after we spent a bit of time messing with technology, but we'll see how it goes. I want to focus on one of the particular chants we do, which we didn't actually do tonight, so my timing's slightly off, but it's a very common one, and it's in the chant book. If you still have your chant book, actually this might help you just to orient, because I'm going to say a bunch of words that aren't all in English here. So it's easier if you can see it, I think. So if you go to page 10, we did the one at the bottom of the page tonight, the Shosai Myo Kichido Darani. But another one we do more often is on the top of the page there, is the Enmei Jukku Kanon Gyo. And some of the chants do seem to explain some teachings, so maybe then self-power has a little purchase. You go, oh, this is explaining it, so I can do better self-power. But these ones don't really explain anything. For one thing, we're chanting them in a language we don't know, so that really doesn't explain anything to us. This one does have a translation to the right of it, one of many possible translations, but there's not really time to read that while we're chanting it. You could look at it now if you want to, but we're going to go through it very carefully in a minute. But even if you look at that, it doesn't really explain anything, you know. It's actually calling out, reaching out, opening up, inviting something bigger than self, you know, bigger than anything we can kind of conceptualize or make sense about. We have to use language to talk about it, so I'll use concepts in language tonight, but it's really calling on something bigger than self. So I have a handout. So people can help me. Thanks, you two. I might have enough for everybody. I should keep one. Thanks. Maybe some people may need to share. When you get it, I want you to just have the side with all the blanks on it and refrain from looking at the side with all the English. English is later. We'll start out with Sino-Japanese. And then I've got stuff I'm going to put on the screen, so just give me a little second here to bring that up.
Larry. Other side facing.
Rip it out once.
Ah, I got it to work. So the other thing I have, I should have given this to you guys when you did that, sorry. What's that? Oh, this is Zoom. Oh, is Deborah having trouble seeing it?
It's not showing up in the
This is actually a Zoom window on the screen, though. Yeah. Oh, maybe she'll
I
tell
can
us.
see it. I can
Okay.
see it.
All right. We were worried for nothing. Great. I'm glad you can see it. So hopefully these pens work. We're actually no longer a group of people listening to a talk. You're now a translation bureau. And if you have your own pen, that's even better. This will be fun. Maybe we'll get out of here on time. It's possible. The reason I'm bringing this up is I recently dug into this much more deeply, and I was really surprised by how it wasn't just an interesting academic exercise for me. And I kind of knew what this meant. I was familiar with the English translation that we have in the book. But I went character by character through the Chinese, and every Chinese character has many different possible shades of meaning, and kind of connector characters that we have in English, and words are left out, so there's a lot that's implied. And as I worked it through, I just felt so much more connected and more intimate with this chant and with the intention of this chant. So I really feel like it's this thing that I've been chanted thousands of times already, at least, for over 3 or 4 decades, kind of came alive in a new way. So I'm hoping you'll have your own version of that a little bit tonight as we just work through what these characters mean, and then think about how to put it into some kind of coherent English. So what I want to do is just go through it line by line, and I'll show you what the characters mean on the screen there. And then what you might do is on the right side, the left side of the big column, just write down the kind of what the words mean literally. And then as we go along, probably do a second pass with some partners. In the right side, we'll try to write out some little sentences that maybe we could chant. And then later we'll indulge in looking at how other people translated it, but don't look. So the title, Enmei Jukku Kanan Gyo, is 7 characters. And the first pair is a phrase that means prolonging life. That's what en and mei are. Actually, it's just to prolong in life, so it's a pretty simple phrase to make sense of. So it's prolonging life. And when we're dedicating the merit from this one, we often say, you might have noticed, this chant, blah, 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 for protecting life. So protecting life, prolonging life. Then, Ju and Ku. Ju is the completely ordinary character for 10. It's that little cross shape there. That's 10. And the other thing that's really interesting here is that the Japanese borrowed, like many other East Asian cultures, they borrowed the entire set of Chinese characters from China. Because China's kind of a deep source culture. And they, seem to be the inventors of the written word. And so other cultures, like Japan, borrowed them, but the Japanese say them a little differently from the Chinese. So if you found a Chinese person and said Jukku, they would not know what you're talking about. Also, oddly, I won't get too far into this, but if you said the same thing to a modern Japanese person, they wouldn't necessarily know what you mean either, because this is kind of like the High Latin of the Catholic Church. This is the way we pronounce Chinese characters if we're kind of looking back at China as kind of high literature or religious literature. So they have more than one way that they pronounce every character. So this is like the old way, kind of like the old way. So, okay, so we have the prolonging life, 10, second one means line or sentence, so 10 sentence or 10 line. Prolonging life, 10 line. Then we have kanon and gyo. Oops, let me go forward a little more. Kanon, or sometimes they say kanzeon, is interesting. This is a name. And here the characters don't mean what they mean. And I forget what those 2 characters mean literally. I looked it up, but I've forgotten. They were used for their sounds. So the Chinese and then later the Japanese were looking for sounds to transliterate Sanskrit words. So somehow Guanyin is the Chinese version, Kanon is the Japanese version, emerged out of the Sanskrit Avalokita, or Avalokiteshvara. So what this is talking about is a figure, and we have a new statue of this figure in the Cloud Hall across the way here. Check her out before you leave. This is a bodhisattva, which is kind of looks like a god to us from our Judeo-Christian frame, but it's not exactly a god. And it kind of looks like a person in some ways, but it's not exactly a person. Maybe like an archetype or a representation or an embodiment of a quality. In this case, the primary quality is compassion, the quality of compassion. So we have the prolonging life 10-line bodhisattva of compassion, count on. And then yo, it means classic work, a classic work. And oftentimes these things use a slightly different character. If you look on the screen, the two characters are very similar looking, which is kyo, which means sutra. So this is not actually just depicted as a sutra, which are the words of the Buddha, but as a classic. So some kind of classic important, or an important work. This is something important for us. So that's the title. And then it starts right in. And you already know now what the first line means. So the first line is the longer version of this celestial bodhisattva compassion embodiment figure, Kanzeon. And Kanzeon is actually more directly connected to Avalokiteshvara, so it's 3 syllables, 3 characters. The name literally in Sanskrit meant she who hears the cries of the world. But the Chinese characters that were picked don't mean that literally, they picked them for the sounds. So we're calling out to this bodhisattva, who is a bodhisattva who hears us. This is cool, huh? This is the bodhisattva who hears the cries of the world. And she's open, right? She listens and she responds. And she is usually gendered female, which is fun, but the statues are all kind of a little androgynous, and you could gender him, her, them, either way, which is kind of wonderful for our times now, actually. This is a gender fluid bodhisattva being, you know. So that's kind of great. So the first line is just the name. All it is a name. So as we turn this into English and into the spirit of it, then we have to think about, well, what's intended? Why are we saying this name here? It doesn't say it with anything, it's just the name. Some kind of invocation. The second line is Namu Butsu. And Namu is another one where they pick the characters for sound. This one is completely nonsensical literally, and I'm afraid I've forgotten what it is, but it wouldn't make sense if you looked at it in terms of the meaning of those characters usually. The second character there, mu in Chinese, is mu in the Chinese pronunciation is wu, mu in the Japanese pronunciation is wu, in the Chinese pronunciation is the famous mu. You heard of mu from the koan world? This is the famous character for no. But here it doesn't mean no. It just means it's sound. So namu is a transliteration of a Sanskrit phrase, paying homage. Namu, paying homage. Homage to, homage to. So we're paying homage to somebody or something. And the third character in line 2 is a really great one to learn. You see this everywhere. Butsu means Buddha. So that's the character for Buddha. So we call out to the bodhisattva of compassion, and then we're in some way honoring the Buddha. So right away, we're not saying anything practical here, are we? You know, there's no instructions so far. We're calling out to bodhisattvas and Buddhas. And then we have 2 very similar lines. Did you notice that? Yo butsu u in and yo butsu u en. And if you've chanted this, this all sounds very familiar. And in fact, why don't we chant the whole thing through a couple times for at least once, so people who haven't heard it will just kind of have this a little bit in their hearts. I'll just do the introductory line and we'll just chant it once to kind of hear it as we go through it. Something will be there when we go through it. Enmei Jukko kanon gyo kanze on namu butsu yo butsu in yo butsu en bu poso en jo raku ga jo chonen kanze onbo en kanze onen Jushinki nen furishin. Let's do it once. Yeah, we're used to doing it 7 times, so let's do it once for time. Yeah. And that's interesting too. That's significant, I think. Like, why do they do it 7 times? So it must be important, or maybe we just really need to hear this a lot, you know? So now let's look at these next 2 lines. This is where it really gets interesting. So Butsu we already know, that's Buddha. So we have Buddha there twice. And the other thing too to remember is the romanization, the English letters, the ones that we can actually read on the left column. The Japanese use the same sounds in lots of different contexts. So sometimes 2 different Chinese characters will sound the same. So it's really important to also look at the character. And as you can see, and it takes a while for your eyes to kind of get used to these little squiggles if they're unfamiliar, but you can see the little squiggle in the second position of line 3 and 4 is the same character as the last position of line 2. Can you see that? Yeah. And that's a great one to know. Let's go back to Buddha. Yeah, good one to know. Has two parts there. And it's just kind of fluid and fun. I actually kind of love these characters. So these lines 3 and 4 add 2 more characters we don't know yet. Yo and u. They both start with yo, which means with. And if you look at the ideogram there too, there's 2 sides that kind of face each other. There's a sense of containment and holding that relates to the radical of the character. So that's with. And u just means I, like self, person, me. So if you put that together, we have with Buddha, I something, right? And the something changes. And in English, and to our ears, the 2 somethings sound very similar. The first one is yo butsu u in. Second one is yo butsu u en. But if you look at the characters, they look way different, right? If you look carefully at the last character in line 3 and line 4, they look way different. Sorry I didn't make these bigger on the page. Hope you have your readers. So let's find out what these 2 characters are, because these are a really key part of this text. So they are,
Yep, you got him.
but the top part has vanished. Let me see if I can bring that down a little bit. So we're off the top of the screen. So I'll do it this way and then I'll make it big again. So the first one, I-N, in English letters, means the root or the direct cause. So these are 2 different aspects of how something comes to be. And Buddhist epistemology is pretty complex, and I don't even understand it very well, but a complex collection of things has to happen for anything to exist, right? So this is cause and effect. But when we hear cause and effect, we tend to think in a really simple kind of one-to-one way. Okay, this caused that. A leads to B. But we all know it's much more complicated than that. And if you studied science, you also know it's much more complicated than that. And it's hard to really be sure what leads to anything. But there are always many, many causes going to anything. But in the Buddhist system, they found or believe that there's a really important central cause. And that's this first one. That's yin, the root cause or the direct cause. So without this one, it cannot happen at all, whatever the thing is. But then there are a host of different supporting conditions, which is the second character. And sometimes that's translated in English as affinity. Like there's something happening here that makes it work, makes it more likely. It makes it kind of sort of facilitates or catalyzes, like a catalyst would be in the second one. The root cause would be you put this chemical in there, but the catalyst needs to be there too, right? So there are many, many different catalysts. And if you think about the things that happen in your life, it makes some sense, right? Because there's this sense of like, wow, when you have that feeling like that just I didn't know that was going to happen, but it feels right. So somehow you were tuning in to some of these supporting causes or to the root case itself. So now if we try to put all this together, let me start this up again. So I can't put things too high on the screen here. Now I'm learning. If we have these 2 different ones, the first one is the root cause. So with Buddha, I, root cause, is line 3. So with Buddha, Buddha causes me, Buddha makes me, right? With Buddha, I am. And you see how you can't kind of go literally in the same word order as the Chinese either to make sense of it in English. So with Buddha, I exist, right? With Buddha, I exist. And then we have with Buddha again, Buddha is also these supporting causes, or Buddha is the affinity or the catalyst. So Buddha is somehow sort of everything here that causes us to come into existence. So think about how you want to do that shorthand. But we're going to repeat the last character again on the next line, so this also gets pretty interesting with this sort of affinity or secondary causes or supporting causes. Those also don't apply just to Buddha. This next line, bu po so en, bu po and so are the famous three treasures of Buddhism, Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So now we're expanding, or maybe we're saying, actually all three of these were implied every time we said Buddha. It could be either way. We don't know, right? So it's like all written in shorthand, It's like a code, an awakened code. So this fifth line must be something like Buddha, Dharma, Sangha causes, or Buddha, Dharma, Sangha affinity. And the translation we have by Robert Aiken in the book, you can be looking at that. We'll look at the other ones in a minute. He writes it as affinity with Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So my connection to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha is important. It doesn't say how it's important, right? That's up to us to figure out. But what it all leads to is the next line. When we're calling out to the Bodhisattva of compassion, we're calling out to Buddha, we're understanding that we are here as sort of emanations or co-arisals with Buddha. The thing that happens is this. Jo, Raku, Ga, Jo. These four characters are a traditional description of nirvana, it turns out, of the Buddhist state of complete peace, complete openness, complete connection. Jo is eternal, Raku is joy. Ga is another character for self, which is interesting to try. Well, why does it say self? And Jo is purity. So at least we assume, it doesn't say, there's no word that says this causes this, right? So we're reading between the lines already a little bit here. But this affinity and this connection to Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, to compassion, to Kanzeon, is connected in some way with nirvana. Helps us realize nirvana, feel nirvana, know that we're already in nirvana, feel this eternal joyful self of nirvana. So this is kind of like the first half of the text. You with me? This is a lot, I know. It's fun though, huh? Yeah, it's really fun.
Question.
Yeah.
So
Yo is with.
Yo is with.
With, yeah, with Buddha.
Where does they can get the association with mind?
Well, U is first person.
Okay.
Yeah, that's where it gets it. Yeah. U is first person. Exactly. So with Buddha, I cause, he could turn into Buddha is my source. Yeah. It's not too big of a stretch. So here's the second half. The second half is about practice. Second half is about how we make this alive in our lives once we open to it, once we call out for it, which may look a little more like the Jiriki, the self-power, but I think it's so folded into this tariki text that we can only see this as something much more emergent and mysterious than me doing anything. So the next line we have Chonen Kanzeon. Chonen Kanzeon. Cho is an ordinary word for morning. And nen is pretty interesting. And we're going to have a bunch of nens. Nen's the key word in the second half. The key words in the first half were in and en, and here the key word is nen. So nen is usually translated literally as thought, but it's also the same character that's used for mindfulness. So I put thought/mindfulness. And when we hear thought, we tend to think discursive thinking and, rumination and, making sense of things and figuring things out. But mindfulness has a whole different quality to it, right? Mindfulness is the quality of holding in mind, quality of presence, right? One of the roots of mindfulness is remembering. And actually the character itself, the top little part, it's like two halves actually. The top half means now, if it's its own character. And the bottom half, we'll see again in a minute, means heart and mind. So now, heart and mind. So now with our heart and mind, we do have thoughts, for sure. but we're much more than our thinking, right? And so we'll get back to the bottom half of that character in a minute. That's a real famous one too. So morning, thought mindfulness, and now you know the rest of that line already, right? Kanzeon. So back to Kanzeon, the last three characters. So morning, my mindfulness or my thought or my awareness, right? That's another, you can also say awareness for that character. My awareness is Kanzeon. And then again, in English, we would add probably more explanatory words or connector words, which they don't have in Chinese. So is it with Kanzeon? Is it towards Kanzeon? Or is it in fact Kanzeon? Is it in Kanzeon here, are we thinking about a figure, or are we thinking about compassion itself? So but what if we think about it as compassion itself? Morning, mindfulness, compassion. That's be a good way to practice, right? Every morning, my mindfulness is compassion. My mind is compassion. And sometimes that character then is just translated straight up as mind, too. So there's a lot of sort of fluidity here. So that's the morning. Guess what the next line is? Evening. But the rest of it's the same, right? So the repetition is interesting, and you can kind of start to learn what the pattern is. So in other words, all the time, right? Practice this way, be this way, understand that you're already this way. And I'm making all kinds of assumptions just as I talk. It doesn't say that. It just says morning, mindfulness, kanzeon. Evening, mindfulness, kanzeon. So how do we interpret that? What's our response? How do we live that, So we're almost to the end of the first go through, and then we'll see if we can put it into some kind of legit English after that, which will be a fun challenge. So the next line, line 9, starts with nen twice. So remember, nen again is this really key word here, meaning thought, mind, mindfulness. So here we're just repeating a word, and we don't usually just repeat words in American English anyway. In the English that's spoken in Kenya and other places in Africa, they repeat words for emphasis. So you repeat a word, it just means you really mean it. My favorite one is same. That means it's really the same. And they say that completely like a normal thing to say. Same car, same car I've already had. So here we have mind, or mindful, thought. So what is our thought? Where is our thought going? It's going to Jushin Ki. Nen Jushin Ki, right? Nen Jushin Ki. So Ju is follow, right? So my thought is following. Here's Shin again. Oh, no, this is the first time you're meaning Shin. Here's a super famous word. This is in everything. Shin. It was the bottom half. So look at the middle one there and see how it's the bottom half of Nen. So look at the bottom half of Nen. There it is all by itself as Shin. Just slightly different proportions because they had to squeeze it to get it to fit on the bottom in Nen. So Nen, thought or mindfulness, is now heart-mind. And here we have heart-mind. So early on in Buddhist translation, this was always translated as mind, without a doubt. Scholar, that means mind. But then, later on, we realized it actually also means heart, like the heart of love, right? So then it gets translated sometimes as heart, and it's both, it's both. So we have this great separation in Western discourse, right, between thought and, head and body, mind and heart. Here it's the same dang word, So we don't even really have an English word for this, so probably have to do heart-mind, heart-mind. So anyway, back to our translation work, and the last character means arrive, to arrive. So thought, mindful, follow the heart-mind, arrive. Follow heart-mind, arrive. Arriving with heart-mind, following heart-mind to its emergence. Heart-mind is arriving as we attend to it, right? Lots of ways you could, but the literal thing there is, thought, follow heart-mind, arrive. And then the very last line is nen again. So there's something really important here about nen, to be sure. Nen, and then we have fu ri shin. Fu is ordinary word for not, negation. And that shows up, if you ever chant the Heart Sutra in Chinese, you hear fu a lot. It's this character. And the uri means separate. So not separate, heart-mind. So thought, or mind, or mindful, not separate, heart-mind. Okay? All right. Find a couple friends and figure if you can see if you can figure out how to make this into something intelligible. You've got 10 minutes. You can do it. Like something you could actually say or chant, you know? And sorry, Deborah, I don't have a super great way, but hopefully you were jotting down and have a notebook or something.
No, I'm just listening to what you come up with.
Okay. Nice to have you.
Nice to be here.
I think those two together, all the consciousness together deep perspective. Well, yeah, I think I think they come together to sort of to do an English.
Yeah, I have to think that I haven't done this one.
Buddha, I am. Cause is pretty different. Buddha, I am. My source. My center. Yeah. My center of Buddha is my. I think that Buddha, I am.
This one is
It's because Western culture we don't really have this
yeah, I don't like it so much.
love that.
So we can with
all the supporting conditions, software, it's just saying like all the different separations you make, it's all really just both you cause improvements in the full infinity, it's all hard. All my surrounding conditions. All the various
making it tricky. I just think I've never known this resonates like a rock. I really think that I literally listening to the other one. And at the same time, like here's like the
Oh, you guys are cheating.
Translation.
Because it's like, to me,
Those factors and supporting conditions. But I think either I am supported or I am sustained by I would put I am sustained. It's just this and this.
and that's what I love about the rawness of it, because then you can take what we need, so either that is extrapolation. That's what I think is interesting.
To me, it seemed like the Chinese took the last two words in the word.
More in my thoughts.
If you switch the position,
Instead
the
of
last two words.
morning, if there's no mind, and it's morning thoughts, why did it expand? It's not only mind, but it's the world. It's exactly that. And that's what I like.
Switch the last two words. True joy, pure eternal music.
And that's what I really love.
That to me really defines
Sneaky.
There's a double entendre. One of those characters can be also used for music. Yeah. Joy's music. Yeah, Joy's music. Yeah.
And if you put an herb,
Oh, right.
grass, you put medicine.
That's right.
Healing plant,
Really cool.
which is Yao Shan's
Yeah.
monastery.
Yeah.
Yaku.
Cool. Yeah, thanks. Joe got paired with the translator. All right, well, I know. This is
We can only do the first half.
This is an American translation bureau. We only get like 10 minutes. Chinese would spend months.
Half of it out.
Yeah, leave half of it. Does anyone have an offering? Any groups have like some kind of offering for us? A rough draft? How would you translate this
How about the
text?
first half?
Yeah, okay, first half. You have a first half?
Yeah, we have the first half.
Okay, so this group's first half, what do you have?
I pay homage, it's Kanzeon. I pay homage to Buddha. Through Buddha I am. Through Buddha I am sustained. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sustained me, and then we ended up stumbling as to how to deal with nirvana.
Louder.
Louder? So, Kanzeon. I pay homage to Buddha. Through Buddha I am. Through Buddha I am sustained. Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha sustain me.
Okay, sustain is fun for, and yeah, that's nice, yeah. Anyone have an alternate first half or a second half? Okay, Bob?
Kanzeon, homage to Buddha. Buddha is my root cause. Buddha supports my practice. The three treasures support my practice.
Ah, support my practice, yeah. And see, yeah.
Creates nirvana. Morning Kanzeon, evening Kanzeon. Thought in mind rises. Thought not separate from mind.
Oh, whole thing. Wow, well done. Well done, you guys. Wow.
Much more efficient than
Yeah, and you can see how to make this intelligible, you sometimes go pretty far from the literal meaning of the character, right? Yeah, like you did there. But we're trying to get the spirit of this thing somehow, or the intention of it, and of course we can do nothing but make lots of assumptions as we go along. And it would help if we were actual scholars who'd worked on a lot of these texts, right? Then we'd have context. But that's okay. We're doing okay. Are there other first or second halves or whole things?
We liked the rawness of just keeping it really simple. We were talking a lot about Nen, the character, because the sheen part, the heart part, is like so important, and we were feeling like it was not a thought. It's more like, in the morning, compassion, in the evening, compassion. It's not thought, it's penetrating our whole being.
So no need to add stuff like
heart.
thought of or
So
like
we
that.
liked,
Yeah.
in a way, we just like that. The simplicity of.
Yeah.
And not
And leave more stuff implied, like is in the original. Yeah, that's interesting
and the
too.
other thing we were thinking is that a lot of times we add I and my, which make it smaller. And
Right.
so there's a level of expanse without leaving those out.
You just leave out
Yeah.
some of those, yeah, exactly. So, and then to treat it more like poetry, probably, and less like a little essay on how to do something, you know, that's probably helpful to us, yeah. And it is a kind of a poem, yeah. Any other additions? Yeah, go ahead, Satya.
Yeah. We have, well, the beginning is the same, and my source is not different from Buddha. All the details are not different from Buddha.
Oh, the details.
All the details are Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha.
Ah.
And then eternal music of the pure self. That joy can be also the character for music.
Yeah, yeah.
And then rest, maybe it's say thought after thought, always arriving in mind, but with a big M. I think the big M mind is important. And then thought after thought is never separate from big M mind.
Right, nice.
Yeah, big one.
Yeah. Yeah, so first drafts, you know, to be considered, but it isn't it interesting though to have like some little more of a flavor, a little more of a feeling of what is this, where did it come from? And then on the back here I put 5 different translations if you were actually restrained enough not to look. And
I really enjoyed this more than analyzing the different translation, which
Yeah.
is what we've done in the past.
Yeah, if you first work on the characters and then look at the translations, you kind of see where they're coming from. Yeah, so the Soto Shu and the Aiken are pretty literal, but then look lower left, then Community of Oregon just went wild.
Well, so did Upaya.
Yeah, and Upaya went kind of wild, yeah. Sounds, that was supposed to be sounds. This was me typing fast this afternoon. Absorbing world sounds. Yeah, so Zen Community of Oregon changed the pounds to S for sounds. Absorbing world sounds awakens a Buddha right here. This Buddha, the source of compassion. This Buddha receives only compassion. Thus the pure heart always rejoices. In the light, recall this. In the dark, recall this. Moment after moment, the true heart arises. Time after time, there's nothing but this. That's pretty far, but we know the intention, right? So it also makes sense, you know. It works, but it's pretty far from the Chinese. You know?
They're actually working on a new translation too.
Are they? Yeah.
They're working on more liturgical ones.
Yeah.
It's even less literal.
Yeah. Yeah, and then Upaya is also a little more fluid. Yeah. So.
I really like that last line and said community for time after time there's nothing but this.
Yeah.
Time or time is nothing this. Whereas literally it's mind, not thought, not separate from mind. So yeah, nothing but is not separate. Yeah, nothing but is not separate. Yeah, so it's like kind of coming at it from another angle. Yeah. All right, well that's our time for the evening. Thank you for accepting the invitation to be the Translation Bureau tonight.